I will never forget the day we left. We left everything behind. It was January 22nd, 1991. The war had been going on for 3 days. It was a really scary time. My parents always knew that a war was inevitable. They moved my brothers, my sister, and I to a house closer to the airport. So when the Civil War finally broke out, cars weren't allowed. These security checkpoints were set up all around. I have never seen so many people walking. There were thousands and thousands of people. Women and men were carrying their children and anything else they could bring. Everyone looked so scared, and I could see so much sadness on their faces. I remember one of my brothers asking someone, "Where are you heading?" And they said, "We don't know. We're just heading as far away from the fighting as possible." I consider myself one of the luckiest Somali refugees. My family boarded one of the few and one of the last flights out of Mogadishu. I have friends and relatives who went through hell during the Civil War. Some ended up in refugee camps. Others witnessed family members killed. 500,000 people died. But my family got out of Somalia. It has now been 2 decades since the Somali Civil War began. But for me, I was able to get an education, have a career, and live a peaceful life because I got out of Somalia. Most people I knew weren't as fortunate as I was, as I am. Friends that I left behind weren't fortunate. I feel guilty about that. Why me, you know? Children born after the war began have only known war. Most of them have never been to school. Everything is destroyed. Hospitals, roads, electricity, schools. Even 20 years later, I'm always thinking about Somalia, especially the children. And I wanted to help build schools because I believe in the difference education can make. With a lot of help from others, Somalis and Americans, I've been able to do that. A year prior to returning to Somalia, I set out to raise $10,000 to build a dormitory for girls at a high school there. It wasn't easy. A friend of mine organized a breakfast fundraiser, and when we raised our $230 that morning, I was ecstatic. We also held small events, and a very generous photographer donated pictures so that we could sell calendars. We printed 500, sold them to friends and to friends of friends, and we went door to door. We asked as many people as we knew to help us. I was so touched when I realized that we raised $10,000. It felt great to give that money to the school. We helped build a dormitory. Um, it was a boarding school for boys only initially, and the dorm rooms that we built provided the opportunity for educating the first female students ever enrolled at the school, 14 girls. And that was the beginning of SAFE, the Somali and American Fund for Education. I went to visit Somalia a year later. I went because I wanted to see the school firsthand. I also was there to train 4 volunteers who would be responsible for overseeing our new projects. You see, by then, we had decided to fund 5 additional schools around the country. 50 schools applied for assistance after hearing about our work over the radio. We chose 5 schools, and at $10,000 per school, that commitment was the greatest fundraising challenge in my life. You know, when people think of Somalia, Opportunity and peace are not the first words that come to mind. No, we think of other words. Several foundations have personally told me Somalia is not one of their priority countries. So it's been difficult raising money for Somalia. Very difficult. How do you build schools in a country that's not considered a country? You know, Somalia is seen as a hopeless cause. It's being written off. But people still have to live their lives, you know. Children still deserve to get an education. Um, I believe it will always be difficult. SAFE will always have to rely on individuals who care enough about educating children on the other side of the world to fund these schools. And Somalis are helping themselves too, you know. They understand the importance of education. When we decide to give $10,000 to a school, we require each school to also raise another 5,000 from their communities. And they've all done that. And that has really touched me tremendously. Parents and community members contribute whatever they can give. Mind you, many of these schools are in rural areas where there is poverty. In one school, parents brought goats from their herds to the school, where each goat could be sold for $60. The principal showed me the money he raised, and he told me his story. He showed me around his school, and ceilings were water damaged and collapsing in the rooms where these nomadic children slept at night. They were happy we came, and I was honored to be there. I have a lot of hope. I have a lot of hope. I hope that we can continue empowering communities throughout Somalia to educate their children. I hope there is enough support out there, and we can do this together. I don't know if there is enough because it's been so difficult to find support for the schools we've helped so far. But I want to try. I want to find out who's out there. I know there are other people out there who believe in educating children in Somalia. That's what I hope. I really believe in SAFE. I believe in the difference we can make.